This guest is an Emmy Award winner, NAACP Vanguard Award recipient, has written an Amazon best-selling book, and has been referenced in policy discussions. Welcome, today's guest, Chris Papst. Thanks for joining me, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, same here, same. So yeah, we're gonna just dive in, man. Um, I'm going to stick to my frame just briefly, just because this is kind of how I roll, and then we'll get into what you do.
Sure.
Where's home?
So home is a little bit north of Baltimore, about 15 miles north of Baltimore and 15 miles south of Pennsylvania, in a
Okay.
nice little area called Hunt Valley, Maryland.
Okay. Born and raised, or did you land there?
No, so I'm from southeastern Pennsylvania in this
Okay.
little tiny farm town, the type of place where there's more cows than people, about 45 minutes to an hour west of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And my dad was a public school teacher, 35 years in the Pennsylvania Teachers Union. And then my brother and I, we both went to school, public school K through 12. So a public school family. And now, I write about public schools in the book. So my
Yeah, that's what.
background is public schools, which is part of the reason that it's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about.
Okay. So, what kind of student were you in when you were in school? What type of, were you like a jock? Were you kind of a nerd? Were you a hustler? Did you have a job when you were 16? Or what kind of kid were you?
So I played football, wrestling, and baseball from I went from one to the other from seventh grade to when I graduated. And then I went to University of Pittsburgh and I played baseball there for 4 years.
Okay.
And then I graduated with a journalism degree and got into journalism, got a master's at Temple, and then started this career in TV journalism. So I was certainly a kid that probably took athletics first
Yeah,
and then academics, but
sure.
I was fortunate enough that I had the ability to really focus more on athletics and a
Right.
little bit less on academics, just because I don't want to. It sounds bad to say like I was smart enough to do that, but it may have been a curse that I was smart enough to do that.
Right. Fair, fair,
Yeah.
fair. Well, so is it when you say you played all three sports from seventh through 12th and then went on to play
Yeah.
college? I mean, was the size of high school, did it kind of determine that? I asked because I went to a high school where it was, yeah, baseball, basketball, football, or baseball, wrestling, football. It was like
Yeah.
we had a smaller school. So it was kind of like if you're playing sports, then we're going to need you for everything. you know,
Yeah. So
and
my
the other coaches, it kind of made you stay in shape, so it kind of worked out. But
So this is going to sound weird because I said I'm from a small farm town, which I
okay,
am. But when my high school I graduated from, we had 700 kids in my
oh,
graduating class.
oh, so you were a stud.
So well, I mean, there was a lot of people in the school.
Yeah,
We'll put
that
it that way.
counts.
Yeah, and it was fun, man. I had a great time doing it. It's one of those things where the relationships that you build with people in sports is very different than the relationship that you build with people in other endeavors in your life. If
Yeah,
you're playing, and that's the one thing about football, that like football specifically is a different type of relationship you build with people, because if the guy next to you doesn't do their job, you can get hurt.
yes,
And that doesn't really exist in any other sport except maybe hockey. Like baseball, if your shortstop doesn't do their job, you probably lose the game. And in
right.
basketball or wrestling, if someone else doesn't do their job, you can kind of pick up for it. But football is one of those things where,
There,
you got 11 people on that team and you better play in unison.
this is true. Well, and now you're passing the legacy of being an athlete on down to your next generation. That's cool. I mean, I
I'm
dig
trying
it.
to. I'm
Yeah,
trying to.
yeah, it's fun. It's a cool thing. Well, so I have a couple people that I've talked to on the podcast that they described the people that, like, one of them as a financial advisor, or he has financial advisors. He's a financial advisor firm or whatever. And then he has, and I'm like, his comparison was he goes, I want college athletes. You know what I mean?
I've
Like,
heard it a lot. Yeah.
because it's like the certain character or traits that come along with improving in sports, the no instant gratification, the stick to itiveness, the all that shit is great for business, so
Well, it's the teamwork, it's the organizational skills, it's
for
the time
sure.
management, it's the Goal setting, I think for me that a lot of it was just setting a goal and then going to get it and
Right.
making sure that goal is ambitious but yet achievable.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of athletics do that because, I, you got to understand who you are and what you can do.
Sure.
And the goal is I'm not going to hit 400 in college, but the
Right.
goal is I'm going to hit 300 in college.
Right.
And you work your ass off until you can try to hit or get very close to hitting 300 in college. And it's those types of skills that you learn in Division One ACC like baseball. Those are types of skills that I think transfer greatly into the business world,
Oh,
and
for sure.
specifically the time management, the devotion, the organizational skills, and the commitment.
Well, and when you said goals, it's like I think everybody in their own way makes them, but it's like having that sports background lets you understand that you're not, if you're not hitting 300, if you're hitting 230, you can get your average up, but it's not going to get up next game. You have to work at it. You have to go
And it's
put in
not going to get up
reps.
by
You have,
itself. Yeah, you
right.
gotta.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you're like, I don't know. I don't know if it's your claim to fame, but what I've looked up that just blew me away, and I dug in a little bit, that you pretty much exposed, um, I guess, the Baltimore school district, right?
yeah,
You did
yeah.
some home. Okay, first, I want to get into what all you found out or how you went. I want to know what made you dive into going, hey, where the hell's
Sure.
this public school money going?
So
Yeah, for
let me
those
give
of you
you.
watching anyway, he's going to briefly describe what it is. I'll let him tell you so you guys aren't lost.
Sure, I can do this in about 120 seconds. I can explain this.
Let's go.
So, I've been an investigative reporter for quite some time, and in 2014, I took a job working for the ABC News affiliate in Washington D.C., and I was an investigative reporter there. In 2017, 3 years later, I got a call from my company, which is Sinclair Broadcast Group, that owns Fox 45 News in Baltimore. And they called me and they said, "Hey, we have this idea of something called Project Baltimore. Do you want to come to Baltimore and give this up and give it a shot?" And what Project Baltimore is that we are an investigative unit that works for Fox 45 News. And there are two photographer editors, two producers, and myself as the reporter. And starting in January of 2017, we picked one topic, and 9 years later, we're still focused on that topic. And the five of us all investigate that topic, which is public education. So in January of 2017, it really started in Baltimore City. And since then, it has spread out to the counties around Baltimore City and now really all of Maryland. And after doing this for 8 years, in late 2025, I wrote this book, Failure Factory: How Baltimore City Public Schools Deprive Taxpayers and Students of a Future, because what we have learned is applicable throughout the entire country. And the way that public education is being run in many places around the country is not prioritizing the education of students anymore. It's prioritizing the acquisition of funding. And then the school systems use that funding to hire more adults, which grows the political power and influence of the public education sector. And what this book is it's 8 years of our reporting, 8 years of what we have uncovered and what we have discovered and what we have exposed, really put into one place. And a lot of times, what people do is they see a headline about public education and it makes them mad. And they see how much money is going in there, the lack of academic outcomes that are coming from it. And what this book does is puts all those headlines from 8 years into one place. And when you see all of it together, it is alarming what is happening in our public schools. And I wrote the book to educate people so people can know what is actually happening, where your money is going, how these schools are manipulating data, how they're graduating kids who can't read, which affects everything. It affects
Yeah.
business, it affects taxes, it affects your property values, it affects crime. Everything is affected by public schools, and that's why I wrote this book, to really try to make an impact and improve our public schools throughout the country.
So, did you get negative feedback from Baltimore?
So when we started
I
in
mean,
in
obviously they don't want to, no one wants to get uncovered the bullshit
yeah,
that they're hiding. I'm in
oh,
Illinois.
of
I don't know
course.
if you know how we roll, but it's ridiculous here. I mean, it is going, okay, you keep getting extra money for education, but we never see what happens. You know,
And
the
that's exactly how they like
we're
it.
still blaming it on COVID that these kids are dumb and
Yeah.
graduating. It's like, well, how about we need to teach them? Then they're not dumb. Like,
Well,
what the?
that's exactly what the public school systems want. So they want your money, but they don't want the accountability. They just want the money. They want to do whatever they want to do with the money. And then if you ever come around, you as in the media or you in the public, you largely get ignored. You just get squashed. As a parent, you just get squashed because these are giant school systems that have a lot of power. And when we started in January of 2017, really doing this, and I don't know if people, your audience is watching or listening to this, but I'm a white guy, and
Yeah.
Baltimore City Public Schools is 93% minority.
Okay.
So you have this guy coming in from out of town who starts doing these hard-hitting reports on Baltimore City Public Schools and really exposing a lot of incredible stuff that we can get to in a little bit. And at first, I did get a lot of pushback. I had a couple people that within the first couple years, they were getting a little bit too threatening and we had to call police. I had a lot of people calling me racist. And actually in the book, I have the emails and the voicemails of people that were calling me and saying these things to me because they're like, how can this white guy be coming into a black city and holding us back and all these things. And I was just a messenger. But as we started doing this and as we started to really show the community that what we're highlighting is real, and the reason that Baltimore is such a struggling city is because for so long it's been a very expensive but very underperforming school system that simply is not giving most of its students the proper education, and it's greatly affecting the city negatively. And at Project Baltimore, the group that I work on, and in Failure Factory, we were showing how it's real. And this is what they're actually doing in these schools. And this is how they're graduating kids who can't read. This is how they're failing or changing failing grades to passing to matriculate kids through the school system.
Oh,
This
you
is how
uncovered the process of how this works.
exactly.
Oh my
And
God.
after we started doing that for so many years, all that stuff stopped. And you had mentioned in the beginning that I have received the Vanguard Award from the Maryland State chapter of the
That's
NAACP.
where I was just when you said you got accused of
Exact,
being racist, I'm like, wait a
yeah.
minute. Yeah.
So it started with me getting hammered for being, racist, simply reporting information that's accurate, by the way, to the NAACP. By the way, the national headquarters of the NAACP is in Baltimore, and the
Oh,
state chapter gave me their coveted Vanguard Award because of the information that's in Failure Factory. Because it's a school system that's 93% minority, and everything that we're uncovering is explaining how these kids are not getting the proper education and how that's affecting everything in the city, including the businesses and the jobs, because they can't hire people that have the math and the reading skills because they didn't get those math and reading skills in the
right.
public education system.
Well, so I'm sure you're well aware that everybody else is doing the same thing that Baltimore's doing. You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
that's exactly why I wrote the book, man, because this is happening everywhere. If you're a taxpayer, no matter where you're listening, a substantial amount of every dollar that you give your local and state government is going to public education. And I know where I am in Baltimore County, Maryland, more than half of all the dollars that Baltimore County collects goes to Baltimore County public schools. More than half. Like that's how important this topic is.
so basically they found something that it's really hard as a regular person to you don't no one says we don't want to fund education, so it's like, well, we'll just use that as the thing that no one questions and do what we
Yep.
want with this money. So what's the solution? I mean, I want to get to some shit that you found out for sure, but is there at the end of your book, is the last chapter the solution?
No, the solutions are throughout the book. There's
Oh,
a couple ways that you can kind of look at this. So there's there's policy solutions, like
yeah.
policies within a school, and then there's political solutions. And you really have to break those up. But for
Sure.
to answer your question, in the situation of Baltimore, it's more of a politics problem.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. So in last year, when President Trump announced the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education, he had a press conference at the White House.
Hmm.
And in his speech, he mentioned one school system. He mentioned Baltimore, and he mentioned my reporting that is in this book. And what he said was 40% of the high schools in Baltimore City, and this is 2023 story that we did not have a single student test proficient in math. So nearly half of all the high schools in Baltimore City, I think there were 35 at the time, 35 now, 40% of them did not have a student test proficient in math. Now, if you're listening to us right now, that is alarming.
Mm.
And it is terrifying to think that nearly half the student body in high school in Baltimore City could not test proficient in math.
That's
So the
crazy.
president says that, and it obviously it blows up. It goes everywhere, as it should. It's an alarming stat.
Oh, he
And
wasn't knocking you. He was calling.
no, 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 he was
He
citing my work.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's
He was
beautiful.
saying like this
This is
is
a
what
problem.
this is the
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
But but the chatter of how outraged people are comes from outside Baltimore City, nothing from inside Baltimore City when it comes to the elected officials and the public officials. And when we first started Project Baltimore in January of 2017, what we could see using federal data was that Baltimore City Schools was one of the most funded, but one of the lowest performing large school systems in America and had been that way for a very long time. And our original question that started this book, Failure Factory, and started Project Baltimore was, how is that allowed to happen? Why is it accepted that year after year after year, you have one of the most funded but lowest performing large school systems in America? And we can see the federal data and state data to show that. And the answer is by simply looking at what President Trump said last year about nearly half the high schools not having any students proficient in math, that you don't have anybody in the city who's elected who is demanding that the school system be held accountable, that people be fired, and that kids get a better education. In Baltimore City, this is happening because it's largely allowed to happen. It's accepted by the public officials, and all they do is continue to give the school system more money year after year after year as the enrollment of students goes down almost every single year, but yet the educational outcomes don't get better
They're just pushing people through.
because the public officials just accept it.
Yeah. So that's just crazy to me because, yeah, when you put it like that, that's actually, I mean, take the politics out of it and you're still going, the school system itself has just decided to tap out. I mean, that's
Well,
insane.
well, look at it this way. Let's say that, okay, the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools, she has been there since July 1st of 2016. So she got there about 6 months before I started at Project Baltimore in January of 2017.
Okay.
She makes nearly $500,000 a year. In total compensation, she's at about $500,000 a year. All right,
Mm.
let's talk some numbers. Just let me get
I'm
through a
in the
couple
wrong
numbers
line of
here
work.
because it'll really show my point, and it's going to show exactly why I wrote Failure Factory. So in 2017, Baltimore City Public Schools had a $1.3 billion budget. In 2024, which is 8 school years later, because you got to count 2017 as the first school years, 8 school years later, it had a $1.7 billion budget. So the school system got $400 million more dollars a year, about a 30% increase in funding over those 8 years.
Mm.
The graduation rate in 2017 was 70%, the lowest in the state of Maryland. The graduation rate in 2024 was 70%.
Mm.
The school system got a 30% increase in funding, and the graduation rate didn't move. The math proficiency rate in 2017 throughout the entire city, the entire school system, all the kids that took the test was 11% in 2017.
That's crazy.
After a 30% increase in funding in 2024, the math proficiency rate was 10%. 90% of the students in Baltimore City are not proficient in math. With a $1.7 billion budget, and the same school CEO has been there overseeing all of it, earning nearly $500,000 a year. Now, here's the answer to your question.
Wait, there's a CEO of the public school system?
Yeah, she's not called a superintendent. She's called a CEO.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing, but a
All
different
right. They
word.
just
It's just
said,
what
"Man,
they
we're going to call it a company. Let's go."
yeah, it's just what they call it in Baltimore
Okay.
City. Now, here's to answer your question. This is a person making nearly $500,000 a year,
Right.
and the graduation rate over 8 years is identical.
Right.
Math proficiencies are down with a 30% increase in funding. The reason that the school system, in what I have seen, isn't changing is because that's allowed to happen. And if you're that person and you're making nearly $500,000 a year, and your bosses, who are essentially the mayor, city council, stuff like that, if they're not forcing you to get better and they're not firing you for a lack of student achievement, what is the motivation to get better?
Right.
Because you're keeping your job, you're getting your $500,000 a year in total compensation, and if no one's telling you, hey, 10% proficiency is not good enough, you kind of got to get that up. If 70% graduation rates the same 8 years ago, if no one's forcing you to improve those metrics, but you're keeping your job, what incentive do you have to improve those metrics?
How about just wanting to do your job? Right? I mean,
Well, they
as
do want to do their jobs.
oh, because to me, it would be if you're treating it like that, then it goes, okay, we have to figure out a plan to increase that batting average a little bit this year. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it is, I get it. I guess if there's no pressure, that's okay. But you would still think when someone sits back and go, I just collected $4 million and did nothing, that's kind of like, well, yeah, I guess good point. Yeah, why not? Just keep
Well, the
the
school
company
system,
card.
the school system has been this way in Baltimore City for many, many years. And came here when I got here when the book starts in 2017. I think it really benefited me to never have lived or worked in Baltimore because I was coming in with fresh eyes.
Sure.
And when I would talk to people like teachers and administrators and students and parents in the school system, and I would say, you know that 11% of your kids are proficient in math. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's like that every year. And I'm like, well, but it shouldn't be. And they're like, yeah, no, it's like that every year. It never changes. That's the mentality.
It's
And
just,
and
it
that's
is what
why
it is.
and that's why 8 years later, math proficiencies are still 10%,
That's
because the
crazy.
mentality is that this is just the way it is. It's accepted. But what changes is the amount of money going into the school system and how much taxpayers are giving the school system. Well, 400 million additional dollars a year, and the graduation rates don't change.
That's crazy.
And nope, and the public officials inside of the city aren't screaming. So let me give you
What makes them
the 40
scream?
the
What can you
40%.
do? You wrote a book. I mean, what more can you do to
You
make them go, okay, well, I guess we need to figure this out.
Well, that's exactly why I wrote the book, because if people understand what's happening, most people are going to vote for politicians that aren't going to allow that. Or they're going to go to their school board meetings. Like where I'm from, right? If we only had, one high school,
Yeah.
because Pennsylvania does things differently than here.
Okay.
But if we found out that, I don't know, 40% of our high schools, let's just say we had more than one, did not have any students proficient in math, that's pitchfork time. That's going to your school board and saying, okay, superintendent, you got to go.
Right.
Assistant superintendents, you're gone. Principals, you're gone. Cleaning house. We're going to get people in here that aren't going to tolerate that.
Oh, you're
That's what,
saying we're letting the people know, so now the people can do what they have to do to make a difference instead of just letting the politics run the show because that ain't working.
Sure. And what I do in Failure Factory is that I show people where to look for data, how to analyze what's really going on in your school system, because the school systems are incentivized to really manipulate data, to be able to show people that the school systems are safer and higher performing than they actually are, because they're getting a ton of money. Over the past 10 or 20 years, we can see the public education budgets are absolutely exploding, but student outcomes are not. So one of the things that I do here in the book is that I go over I go over school board policy, which is probably the least sexy topic in the world. Like nobody wants to talk about school board policy. However, there's language in school board policy that is incredibly important that can really show you where your school is as far as student academic outcomes. And what I do in Failure Factory is that I show you the language that you should look for in your own school systems that are indicative that your school systems are starting to go down the hill academically. And the schools are trying to pass more kids without educating those kids. And I'll give you one example. Baltimore City has what's called a 50% rule. And what this 50% rule says is that no matter how little work a student does, no matter how few homework assignments they hand in or tests or quizzes they take, the student doesn't even have to come to school. They cannot get lower than a 50 in a semester or marking period grade. Okay. Now, what the school systems are doing is essentially giving students half credit for nothing. And in Baltimore City, a passing grade is a 60. That's the minimum passing grade. That's a D minus. Well, if you start at a 50
Oh,
and you
you just
can't
got to do
ever get
10%
below a
of your work.
50, you only got to do 10% of the work. Yep. So
That's
you
great.
score, but that's what Baltimore City Schools is doing. And the reason that they instituted the 50% rule is because they wanted more students to pass. Because when students pass, they stay enrolled. And enrollment determines a school's funding. So the longer that a school system can keep a student enrolled, not educated, the longer that they can keep them enrolled, that's how schools make their money. So things like the 50% rule are designed to pass the kids that keeps them enrolled.
And the
Now,
50% rule is in the
it's in the school board
it's
policy. So
oh wow.
in Failure Factory, what I do for readers is I show you, look for this language in your school board policy because it's going to show you if your school is struggling or thriving academically. And there's other examples that I give in the book, like the 50% rule that people need to know about. And here's why it's important. In Maryland, where I live, the higher performing school systems do not have the 50% rule. The lower performing school systems do. So even where I am, the disparities between school systems is significant because if you have the 50% rule in your school system, it means that your school system is trying to pass more kids without properly educating them. Because you would think if you want more kids to pass, you educate them better. Well, that doesn't guarantee that they pass, and plus, educating kids is hard. The easy way to get kids to pass is to make it easier to pass. And the 50% rule does that.
So is a school board policy, is that public information? I mean, you look, can I probably,
Oh,
for
yeah.
people watching, you can look that up probably and see what your school
You
board
you can go
policy.
right on your local school system.
Yeah.
Where we're called where we are, all the local school systems have it on what's called board docs,
Okay. Okay.
BOARDDOCS. So your school system may have that as well, but if not, it should all be online. You should very easily be able to go on there and
Yeah.
start looking for these things. And
Right.
I lay all of them out in Failure Factory. Look for them, and if those things are there, it's a problem.
Oh man, I'm itching. I just was sitting here jotting some stuff down. I'm like, oh man, I got to look up our school system because I'm telling you, I feel like we're there.
So the school system my dad worked in for 35 years, it was a blue ribbon school and it was one of the higher performing schools in Pennsylvania. And a couple years ago, it adopted the 50% rule. And if you look, you will see that their academic outcomes were falling. And that's when this thing got enacted. In Baltimore County, where I am, in 2015, not that long ago,
Right.
Baltimore County instituted the 50% rule. And if you look at Baltimore County's academic outcomes, prior to that, they were falling. And what the 50% rule did was that it leveled out the decline because more kids were now passing because the school system made it easier to pass. They lowered the level of expectations and they
Wow.
lowered the academic standards for the kids so more kids would pass. So if you look at that school system, you would say, hey, your data is pretty good. Well, yeah, but are the kids learning?
Yeah, you got a bunch of C students who got 4.0 now, and they're going to college and then going, oh shit.
Well, that's a whole other issue because now we have the issue of colleges and
I mean, right? If
remedial
you're a
courses.
decent student,
Yeah.
BC student with the 50% rule, you're under the impression that you're freaking killing it.
Well, the 50% rule doesn't help them.
I got you. Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, it,
So
it only helps the kid that gets
that
below
isn't
a
gonna that
50.
was gonna bomb.
It helps the kids that were going to get below a 50%
I
because they either
gotcha.
don't show up to school or they don't take tests or quizzes or don't care, don't turn in homework. If a kid earns an 80, the kid's still earning an 80.
Okay,
With the
okay.
50% rule, if a kid earns a 0, they
He
get a
still gets a
50.
50.
Yes.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, that's complete manipulation. So I'm just thinking, why or how does no one know about that? Well, you know about it, but I mean, it's just what
Well,
the
that's why I wrote the
hell?
book because I'm trying to educate people on these things.
Yeah.
And really like one of the things that really stuck out to me was so in COVID, when COVID hit and a lot of public schools came home on laptops and things like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
people really got an understanding of what was happening in public schools.
Right.
And the public schools took a big hit. And enrollment's gone down. It hasn't recovered. In Maryland, enrollment's going down a lot because people are taking their kids out of school. And what I really see Failure Factory is it's the next step in that evolution.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing is I'm getting weedy. Like I'm getting into the granular aspects of public education and dissecting how the dollars are being spent, talking about things like the 50% rule that have a significant impact, not just on the kids, because if you're passing kids that aren't properly learning, you're setting them up for failure years down the road. And that's what we're seeing. That's exactly what we're seeing.
Oh,
So if we
yeah.
want to know why college is getting so expensive, one of the big reasons for this is because when kids are entering college, they're not ready and they got to take remedial courses. So a kid is spending $10,000 on remedial courses to get them ready for college courses. And by the time they're ready for college courses, they're already $10,000 in debt because the public education system didn't properly educate them from K through 12. Like the ramifications of
Oh,
all
yeah.
this are
Can't
so
send them
significant.
back. It's going, well, here's a buffer year to get you ready for college since they forgot to do that.
But it's an
And it's going to
expensive
cost
buffer
you.
year. Yes. And it's going to cost you a lot of money and you're going to be in so much more debt.
Yeah. So, do you know, at least in your area, where is the money going?
All right, so let's talk about it. So we mentioned
Because I'm
that,
looking at a figure that says 1.7 billion.
yeah,
That's a lot of money.
which is 400 million more than it was 8 years prior. So where is the money going? So in 2017, when Failure Factory begins, the school system had 5,149 teachers.
Okay.
5,149. In 2024, with 400 million additional dollars put into the school system, and this is all from the Maryland State Department of Education, the school system had 5,149 teachers. Same exact amount. They
Right.
didn't hire any teachers. So the school system got a 30% increase in funding and did not hire any additional teachers. So what did they hire? Well, you can see that director level jobs, they hired director level jobs, they hired administrators,
Oh, they created jobs.
they hired people in central office. The money was not used to hire teachers. Now, if it's kind of like what I talked about earlier in your program is that the public education systems, it appears by just looking at the data, the 8 years of data in Failure Factory, that they're not prioritizing the education of kids. They're prioritizing the acquisition of funding and then using that funding to hire adults. Now, apply that to what we just talked about. The school system got 400 million more dollars a year over those 8 years, but they didn't hire any teachers. Didn't hire any additional teachers, not one additional teacher. It
Nor
went
did
to
it
other,
improve anything, which is about accurate. You did nothing.
which would make sense. The graduation rate didn't go up. Math proficiencies went down. Why? Because they didn't hire any additional teachers.
Right. Right. It is hire teachers, hire more teachers, up the teachers that are working, up their salary a little bit. They're underpaid anyway for how important their job is. But on the other hand, you got to do it. You got to do the job. I mean, yeah, that's tough, dude.
But these are the
1.7
things that
billion to
these are the things
schools.
that only nerds like me that are really digging into this data can find, because people that are listening to us right now, you got tough lives. I mean, you're working 40, 50 hours a week, you're taking care of your families, you're cutting the grass. You don't have time to be sitting there like me. Like, I spend my 40 hours a week looking at this data.
Yeah,
And then
well,
what I do,
we work and get our asses taxed
exactly.
and hope the
Yeah.
education system's going to get better. But like you're going, oh no, they just created a couple more jobs. There's
And
no,
what I'm trying to do, and what Failure Factory is doing is, while you, God bless you, you're doing your job, my job for my 40, 50 hours is to look at this data and to show you how your hard-earned money that you're sending to your public school systems are being spent. Because I know that it's not just Baltimore City that what we're talking about is happening. It's happening all around the country. And as I'm doing this book tour and as I'm talking to people, I'm hearing from people all around the country that are saying, yeah, we have the 50% rule here. I looked it up. Yeah, our school system got a massive increase in funding over the past few years, and our math proficiencies and graduation rates didn't budge. And now people are starting to sort of see it, and they're looking at it. And it's really quite an alarming thing. And when you see how the sausage is being made, and I really hope that what Failure Factory does is show you how the sausage is being made so you can replicate it where you are,
yeah.
that we can really turn this thing around, because we
The
cannot allow
50% rule
so
is
much money.
insane, correct? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
crazy cop out to not educating our kids.
And that's only one example of many of how the school systems are prioritizing passing the students, not educating the students.
Get them
Because
through,
educating the students doesn't make a school system money. Keeping them enrolled, passing them is what makes them money.
right? How long ago, I mean, this 50% rule, how far does that date back? I know that wasn't in effect when I was in school. I mean, they didn't have shit like that then, I don't feel like, or have they had
So
it forever?
I know in Baltimore County it started in 2015. I
Okay, so it
I
is fairly new.
But in Baltimore City it goes back much farther than that.
Oh,
I haven't really been able to trace the vote to it. So I don't know when the vote actually happened, but it was probably maybe 20-ish years ago, I would
no
guess.
way people knew what that was coattailing on the back of a bill somewhere when they voted for it. No way.
So the one thing that I've noticed is, and it's interesting that you said that, is that a lot of these policies, when they get voted on, they get presented in a certain way that this is for a very small percentage of our kids. It's not going to affect that many. But then what happens is these kids are smart. They're smart kids. And they see their friend who didn't come to school for 20 days and got a 50. And then they're like, wait a second, I got a 58 and I came to school every day. Why the hell would I come to school anymore if I can just get a 50 not coming? And this is what teachers tell me. So I talk to teachers and I interview them for Failure Factory, and they say these kids are smart. They'll not come to school for the first 20, 30, 40 days, know that I have to give them a 50, and then they'll do work to get to a 60 or 65,
And
and
cruise
then
on.
know that I can't give them below a 50, and it'll all average out to a 60, and they'll just quit coming to school.
That is
And this is teachers telling me what kids are doing. And while these policies may initially be passed, maybe for just a very small percentage of the students, it doesn't have that effect in the long run.
right. Because, like you just said, the number grows based on just recognition of what the heck's going on. Oh
Exactly.
man, if only a kid would understand how important that education is now, but they're not supposed to understand.
Well, I mean, I didn't. So when I
No.
was in high school, when I was in elementary school, I mean, my parents impressed upon me pay attention in class, do your homework, work as hard as you can. And I was a B student. I was
Right.
a 3.0, 3.2 student. I mean, we talked about earlier that I was more interested in athletics.
Yeah. Stay
But
eligible.
yeah, but I
Right.
kept I kept myself in the 3.2 range, even when
Yeah.
I was in college at Pitt. I think I graduated with a 3.2 GPA. I
Yeah.
kept myself right there. But I'm not going to say that I fully understood the 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 long-term value of that
Oh,
education.
not a chance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think kids generally do. That's why it's so important for the adults in the school system to be able to hold those kids accountable and have high expectations for them.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're learning how to sit next to a kid, an empty desk chair and manipulate the system, you're not a dummy. Let's just teach you the correct things and we'll
No, they're
have a
not.
successful future. I think that's what gets me. We implement a 50% rule. This just that rule is just blowing my mind. Like it's not going to impact our who the hell do they think is the future? The ones, you know what I mean? On of course there's many different stages of people that are required in life.
Yeah. Well, who
And
it's
we're
impacting is the adults because it's making the schools look better than
oh
they
yeah,
are. It's
right.
making the schools look higher performing than they actually are because more kids are passing.
Right.
That is who largely these rules like this help the most. Now, there are instances, let's say that you're sick. Let's say that you're like one of your family members gets sick, your mom or dad gets sick, and you miss school for a week or two. There are certain instances where something like the 50% rule could help the child. But when you talk to teachers and you talk to the administrators in the school system, like I do for Failure Factory, what they will tell you is that 95% of the instances, it's not helping the child, it's hurting the child because
Right.
it's enabling them not to learn, but move through the grades.
Yeah. That is crazy, man. Well, good. I mean, good for you. It's uh your your years of digging in and nerding out doing work is paying off, dude, because this is huge, man. I mean, there's not many things that are more important than kids' education, I wouldn't think, at least not in my world or brain. It doesn't
Well,
yeah,
especially for, the business beyond business podcast. And
that's what I mean.
yeah, the
Yeah,
reason that the argument that I make in this book is Baltimore is really at the end stages of what a failing public education system does to a city.
right.
And Baltimore's a tough place, man. Every year, it's one of the deadliest, most murderous, crime-ridden cities, not just in America, but in the Western Hemisphere. It's losing population. It used to have nearly 1 million people. Now it's down to like 550,000. And most every year, that number goes down.
Oh, so you're
Uh,
seeing in real time the impact of
yeah,
this.
exactly.
That's crazy, man.
And I make the argument that those problems in the city are not are the symptoms of the issue. The
Yeah,
issue is that the public education system is very expensive and not properly educating the kids of Baltimore City. And the importance I hope to make with Failure Factory is to stop another Baltimore before it happens, or to stop America from going down that route, and to really educate people so they know how to hold their school systems accountable. They know how to go to their public officials and say, you need to hold your school system accountable, or I'm not going to vote for you anymore. If this is correctable, we can correct this. We can fix the public schools in America. We can make them better.
right.
But my hope is that this book is the pathway on how we can do that.
Dude, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're definitely on to something. And oh man, this is huge. Hey, good job, man. Hey, so if you're out there listening, I'm going to put the link to be able to click on and buy this book. But I have in my cart, Amazon cart right now, 5 copies of it. I'm going to keep one. So the first 4 people to DM me and say, send me that book, I'm going to send you a copy of it too. Um, I would really like it to be something you're interested in, not just want free shit, because this is something that, I mean, we have that too, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but I think this is something huge. And the very valid point that you made is this isn't just for, uh, a look in behind the scenes. This is something we can change. We are the people who vote people into office. We are the ones who can show up at public school board meetings and say, and I hate to say it, I haven't even looked, but I'm going to take a stab and go, there's 100% chance there's several school districts, probably the one we're in, as well as Chicago school districts that are implemented that rule. Um,
I would
no
almost
doubt.
guarantee it.
Yes.
Almost
Yes.
guarantee it.
Yeah. Wow, dude. Well, man, I really appreciate this. This has been a really insightful. What an amazing journey. So you're just still digging?
Yeah, still do this every single day. The graduation rates just came out a couple days ago, and Maryland's graduation rate went down
Hmm.
1.2% after whew, 2 billion additional tax. Maryland's going through this thing right now where it's called the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, where the politicians in the state decided that they're just going to go all in on public education, and they're putting massive amounts of public education, additional monies in the public education. And the graduation rate just went down 1.2%.
Hmm.
And they're blaming Donald Trump. And they're saying that
Why
Donald
not?
Trump is the problem because of immigration enforcement and that kids are afraid to go to school and learn. That is what the politicians in Maryland say. But but this is what I've noticed. And that may be true. I don't know if it's true or not, but here's what I'll say.
They'll say anything.
Over the past 8 years, as we talked about on your show, the educational outcomes in Baltimore City have remained the same. Every single year, there's a reason.
Right.
And they
Right.
find a reason for why it didn't go up. And
Yeah.
then, you know, you look back over 8 years and you see that it's every year there's a different reason, but after an 8 year stretch,
You're
it's the
running out,
same.
man.
It's the same story. So this year, I was joking because it's really cold here, and the kids have been in school because we had this snow and ice, and it's been really bad.
Right.
We were joking today in the office that next year, when the graduation rate and test proficiency numbers come out and they
Mother
don't go
Nature's
up,
fault.
they're going to blame the cold. Yeah, they're going to blame Mother Nature. Yeah, because the kids weren't in school and they missed all this instructional time, which
Right.
again, it might be true, but every single year it's something. But you know what
Yes.
they always get every year? They get our money and they get more and
More
more
money.
and more of it, but the student outcomes don't get better.
Yeah. Dollars. There should always be, man, that was something I just posted this little rant last week of our governor here. Is that we're going, okay, I get it. We're getting education money, but what is happening with the money? Where is it going? Where's the more teachers? Where's of course, it wasn't like I was looking for an answer. I just was going, what the hell, man? Because we get taxed like crazy. And yeah, dude, I'm here. I'm here for the show that you're putting
Well,
on, man. This is great. This is
well,
great. Good,
I
good
really
job.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you so much for buying, a couple copies of the
Yeah,
book
yeah,
and
yeah.
distributing it to your audience.
I like what you're doing. And if people like you don't exist, dude, the future looks a lot worse than it could.
Well, thank you.
I
Oh
mean, I'm
yeah, and
just
I'm taking that as kind of a compliment,
no,
but
it is.
yeah,
No, no, it definitely is a compliment. Yeah, I mean, because yeah, that's it. It was we would just be in the dark. Hell, I had no idea. This is crazy to me. This is insane. Like I can't imagine
and
when you started uncovering this stuff, you're going, uh, wait, can you guys do this? And it's like, sure we can. We're the government.
well, and what we've talked about is 25 pages of a 250-page book.
Oh, I'm
So
in.
if you get the book,
I'm
please,
in.
I'll come back on, read it, and we can really have
Let's do it.
we can really dig into it, and I'm sure you'd have a lot more questions that you would have after that.
That is awesome. Well, dude, I know you got something you got to get to go do. And I appreciate your time, man. I'm gonna check that book out. Uh, Yeah, I'm gonna read through that thing and I'll reach out back to you and just see if I can get your ear again. And
And
by
the
then
four
I'll have
lists.
done my due diligence on my area a little bit too. So I'll
Yeah.
go,
And your four
bro.
listeners that get their free copy, or any other listener that gets a copy, please reach out to me. I'm the easiest person in the world to get a hold of. I'm just Chris
Perfect.
Papst, CHRISPAPST at X on Facebook, chrispapst.com. Get a hold of me and let's keep the conversation going.
If I'll make sure I link you in the thing. So if anybody wants to reach out or check out what you're doing a little further, they can just click a link and check you out. But
Awesome.
yeah, well,
Perfect.
thanks for your time. Thanks for what you're doing. And I'll definitely be back in touch with you after I check this book out, man. Good job. And go make them kids get better at shooting hoops, dude.
Off to a basketball game. Thank you so much, man.
Thank
Really
you
appreciate
very much, man. You have a good one. Hey,
it.
thanks for joining us on another episode of Beyond Business. We'll catch you again in a week. Until then, be kind to each other. Thank you.